Good morning, everyone on this platform. You are warmly welcome to today's presentation in the platform of the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies of the National Open University of Nigeria. I am Gloria Neto, the director of the center, and on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of our great university, the National Open University of Nigeria, Professor Olufemi Peters, I welcome all of you very sincerely, and I say that we are looking forward to a very educative and interesting session this morning. But before I go ahead to introduce the speaker, the presenter for today's activity, I'm going to now tell you briefly about our center, the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, which was started with a seed fund from TED Fund in 2020, precisely February 2020. And the center has since been taken over by the university in running it. And our Vice Chancellor, Professor Olufemi Peters, is very passionate about the center and is very supportive and ready to make the center continue to work hard and work stronger. This center is about taking a good research stand on migration and global issues generally. And the main vision of the center is to bridge between humanity and the future, and the mission is to provide sustainable leverage for interdisciplinary research in migration and global studies. And our core values include integrity, inclusion, diversity, service, and participatory. We have some core mandates to fulfill, amongst which are to provide leverage for the field-based and solution-driven research, to serve as agents of national policy for migration and global studies, to seek grants for academic activities and outreach for sustainability, to publish and sustain peer-reviewed academic journal and monograph series, to collaborate with stakeholders in the field of migration, global studies, and policymakers, to organize occasional seminars, conferences, and public lectures in migration and global studies. And I use this opportunity to tell you that we have a journal already that has emanated from this center called the International Journal for Migration and Global Studies. And we are actually on our 4th issue. Yes, we have 2 volumes, and each year we have 2 issues. So we started just last year because this center was founded in 2020 during the COVID. So we started the journal issues last year. And so we had volume 1, issues 1 and 2 for 2021. And this is 2022. So we've had volume 2, issue 1, and the 2nd issue is still going to come out later this year. Actually, our months are April and November. So the November issue is on its way. So, and we want to continue having two issues per year. And most of the papers we have there come out from most of the seminars we have. And of course, others may not necessarily be in our seminar issues, but they must be peer-reviewed and of quality and good standard. And so we want to make our journal a world-class journal, trying our best to make it international as the name implies. So having told you briefly about our center, we have our center website as well as our journal website. And when you just log in, you will find the center website and journal website. Which one of my staff is going to put on now? Mr. Samuel Egege is going to put those 2 in the chat so that you can feel free to log on and see what we do there. So Mr. Egege, please put on the journal website and the center website on the chat box for people who want to look at it. So having said that, let me now go to introduce this eminent scholar of today. And it's no other person than Professor Sydney Ajunwa Osuji, who is the current Dean of the Faculty of Education of the National Open University of Nigeria. His CV is a biodata, even though brief, is very long, but I'll try to just give us just a few things about this icon before us this morning, because we cannot say everything about him. We know that he's a wonderful scholar, and he got his first degree from University of Calabar, where he obtained Bachelor of Education in Elementary Education in 1989. He also obtained a Master's of Education in Measurement and Evaluation from Abia State University, Uturu, in 1993, and holds a doctoral degree also in Measurement and Evaluation from the same university, Abia State University, Uturu, in the year 2000. He got Federal Ministry of Education Scholarship Award when he was to read his Master's in Education degree in Measurement and Evaluation from 1990 to 1993. You know that this is a scholar because it's not easy to get a federal scholarship. He also got Commonwealth of Learning Scholarship Award to read a postgraduate diploma in distance education and made in distance education from 2005 to 2007. He is a member of many learned societies, and some of them are I'll just name a few. He is a member of the E-Learning Association of Nigeria, member Open and Distance Education of Nigeria, member Association of Educational Researchers and Evaluators of Nigeria, member Educational Assessment and Research Network in Africa, member Association of Educational Assessment in Africa. Of course, like I said, among others, the list is endless. He was a part-time lecturer in Abia State University when he was where he trained in between 1995 and 2003. And from there, he came to join this great university, National Open University of Nigeria, in 2003. And when he came in, he became a course coordinator. And from the day he came in till now, he has been able to rise to that the position of a professor of measurement and evaluation. He was the head of unit for early childhood education for so many years, and he was also head of department for so many years. And finally, he became the dean of the Faculty of Education in the last 4 years. He has been the dean, so he's trying to round off his tenure, but his legacy speaks for him. He is been the dean now for the past 4 years, like I said, and has also shown scholarly achievement by publishing in so many renowned journals, both nationally and internationally. He has attended many conferences, both outside and nationally and outside the country. And currently, he's a visiting scholar to the University of the Gambia. He has successfully supervised many students' projects, both at undergraduate level and postgraduate level. No doubt we have a brilliant scholar before us this morning who wants to share with us today, and we're happy to have him amongst us. And he's going to tell us about educational migration as a bridge for SDG 4 achievement. And I am happy to say, welcome, sir, and over to you, Professor Osuji, for this presentation. And I want to say, as a professor, we normally give you up to 1 hour to air to speak with us, because we know you are a man with experience. I want to listen to us. You have 1 hour from this minute, and you have been given the access to share your screen, being a co-host. So you are welcome, sir, and over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so very much. My title is Educational Migration as a Bridge for SDG 4 Achievement. By way of introduction, you know that people's movement can be both intra and inter-country related. That means people move both within and outside the country. It has become a key element of contemporary socioeconomic reality. Such forms of mobility as migration for economic purposes, employment, and or higher earnings. People move in order to get greener pastures, in order to have higher earnings. For instance, many doctors move from Nigeria to outside the world in order to get higher earnings. And again, you discover that as a result of the educational system in Nigeria, many lecturers are moving out of the country. And this is the same all over the world. People continue to move. So while people move for better opportunities, others move as a result of fleeing from danger. Where you have a crisis, people move away from the crisis in order to save their life. All these are migrations. There is also the educational migration, which is our major concern in this discourse. And I want to say that educational migration has generated a lot of consequences in a significant influence on the shape, development, and the functioning of the outflow and inflow areas. So people move, and when they move in search of better education, the movement impacts on both the country they are moving and also the country from where they are moving. These impact on the demographic spheres of the academic, economic, and socio-economical life and the labor market. You see, when somebody moves, the movement must impact on, especially when it is about educational migration, the movement impact on labor markets. And you know what is happening now, the socioeconomic situation in the world as a whole, movements also impact on that aspect. We are talking about the fourth United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, SDG 4, from the 2030 agenda. And this one says, to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promotion of lifelong learning opportunities for all. We are talking about the SDG 4, which is a fallout of or part of the 2030 agenda. And it is about equitable quality education. It is about promotion of lifelong learning. It is about opportunities for education. And it's talking about education for all. And so that is our main concern. This goal implies that we leave no one behind in education. Nobody should be left out of education. This includes the migrants. Whether you are moving from Nigeria to America, whether you are moving from America to London, you must not leave your right of education behind. That is what this goal is saying. The question then is, does migration interact with or affect education? The answer we shall see as we go on. Let us take education as a driver to migration. Education can be regarded as a human right and a transformational force for poverty eradication, sustainability, and peace. Many people describe education in different ways. Some say it is power, some say it is that, some say it is this. But we know that education gives you power or the force is a force for poverty eradication. It's also a force to maintain peace anywhere at any time. It means that when people move, whether voluntarily or otherwise, they should not leave their right to education behind. That is what we are preaching. Even if you are moving from one country to other, or you are moving within the same country, you should not leave your right to education behind. It is a power you are getting. It is a right, and so you have to take it. Younger people migrate for better quality education. Yes, people, especially the youth, they migrate because they need quality education. Wherever they can find quality education, they move in there in order to get it. In most countries, education is the main reason for migration. So many people move as a result of crisis, but the major reason why the youth, why young people move is because of education. The more educated are more likely to migrate for further education. So the more you get education, the more you want to get more and more education. And so once you are educated, you have that mind to get more education, to be more educated. And so wherever you can get quality education, you move in order to get it. Internal migration for higher education is linked to variations to affordability and quality. There are different reasons why people move, why we have educational migration. The most important is where education is affordable, and then where you can have quality education. Graduates of secondary schools are more likely to go to universities. When you graduate, I've already said that the more you get education, the more you look for to acquire more education. So when you graduate from primary school, the next thing is for you to look for secondary school and go to secondary school. And when you graduate from secondary school, it is more likely that you go to university. But then these universities are mostly located in the urban areas or cities. You see, if we take Nigeria, for instance, you can see that most of the universities are located in the cities. And so that causes also migration. When you finish your secondary school, you have to go migrate from your area to the city where you can access university education. People's preferences and aspirations for education prompt them to migrate. Because you need more education, because you aspire to have more education, you now have the need. It will make you it will prompt you to move. In a study by Bernard et al. 2018, using 53 countries, the principal reason for migration is doubled among people with primary education. They used 53 countries, and they compared how people move. And then they said those with primary education, if those without education, if one of them is moving, those with primary education 2 times, that is double that number, will move for those with primary education. And those with secondary education, 3 times the number will move. And those with tertiary education, 4 times the number will also move. And that is in comparison with people without education. That is telling us that the more you have education, the more you move in order to acquire more education. In most countries, especially in Africa, rural to urban migration is more with the more educated. So the more educated fellows move from rural to urban. Of course, the reason is simple. If you are not educated, what are you going to the town to do? But there are exceptions, so, because the situation in Nigeria now makes people to move, whether you are educated or not. And so you see in the towns, people riding Okada, people driving keke and so on. They are not educated. But the ideal thing is that people move from rural to urban areas because they want to acquire more education. This means that education is the major cause of variation in migration. Then, when children migrate from rural to urban areas for the purpose of education, their educational attainment is higher than those in the rural areas, where access to quality education is very low. The reason is obvious. Let's take, for instance, in Abuja here. You will see so many qualified teachers in Abuja, in most of the schools in Abuja, starting from primary to tertiary. We have so many qualified teachers, especially women who are qualified teachers, but cannot leave their husband, they cannot leave their family for the rural areas. That is why concentration of quality teachers are more in the urban areas than in the rural areas. And again, the implication is that you get quality education in the urban schools than in the rural schools. And so the educational performance of learners in the urban schools can be compared to that of rural schools, and you will see that there's a difference. I want to allow you to take a research on this, take a study on this, and find out if learners in the rural areas perform more than learners in the urban areas or vice versa. So check on that. Of course, there are some exceptions. The children who are subjected to child labor by their guidance in the cities cannot meet these expectations. So many children move to the urban areas, to the city centers, city towns, and so on. But of course, the aim of moving may be for education, but eventually, most of them do not meet this expectation. Studies have shown that many rural children work as domestic helps in urban households. Most of the children that migrate from the rural areas to the urban areas are subjected to child labor by their guardians. And you see, even if they access education, what time do they have to get quality education? You move in the morning, go to school, come back, you carry your wares and go to the street and hawk. What time will they have? By the time they come back, they are already tired and they sleep. And so these are the exceptions that even though they are in the cities, their academic achievement may not be the ideal. These children are among the most vulnerable to non-attainment or non-attendance to schools. There is a study by International Labour Organization in 2017. The B report says that about 17.2 million children aged 5 to 17 were in paid and unpaid domestic works in an employer's home in 2012. And 2/3 of this number were girls. We are talking about migrations, and we are talking about children who migrate from the rural areas to the urban areas with the quest to earn more education. And we are saying there are also exceptions, and these are the exceptions. You can therefore see that education drives migration. We are saying education drives migration. But the two of them combine to have a multifaceted process which involves individuals, educational institutions, communities, and countries. Through this process, people can develop knowledge, skills, and competencies, and to contribute to social and economic development. We are saying that education and migration combine together in order to influence both the individual himself, to impact on the individual himself, to impact on the educational institutions where they move from and from where they go out. What they get, what they earn, what they acquire will also impact on the communities where they are, and communities from where they have moved. It will also impact the countries. Through this process, people can develop knowledge, acquire skills, and acquire competencies. And with these skills, with this knowledge, with these competencies, they can contribute to social and economic development of their country. Now, you can see that some people who left the country some time ago in order to get more education, in order to acquire more skills, in order to get more knowledge about what they are looking for. Some of them are making waves today in Nigeria. Some of them are drivers of the economies. Some of them are drivers of the industries. Some of them are drivers in different parts, even in political situation, in political environment. They are also drivers. And so we need to encourage educational migration. I want to talk about the Sustainable Development Goal 4, SDG number 4, which seeks to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education for the promotion of lifelong learning opportunities for all. Lifelong learning opportunities for all. I always emphasize on lifelong learning. And that is because our society is changing. And the realities of the environment is also changing. And so people must learn. And they must continue to learn, not learning a particular thing and stopping, because the situation warrants. For instance, in the past, we used landlines, that is telephones, we used landlines. But these days, we are using mobile phones. If you were using landlines in those days, and these days we have mobile phones, and the mobile phones are of different levels of sophistication. It means you have to learn how to use the mobile phones. And you see, most of the mobile phones are like computers. They can use for different things, including calculations, including locating having maps, including storage, including whatever, cameras and so on. So you have to learn how to use them and how to use them effectively. If you stop learning, how will you use them? It means you cannot use your mobile phone effectively. And that is why the UNO is emphasizing on lifelong learning. You must continue to learn. The question is, what will be the role of education and training to ensure humane and orderly migration, to promote international cooperation on migration issues, to assist in the search for problem solutions to migration problems, and to provide humanitarian assistance to migrants in need. To provide probable answers to the question, we need to understand very well the range of the educational engagements to the SDG 4. We then consider the overall purpose, target, and means for the implementation and to link them together. The SDG 4 is an offshoot of the Millennium Development Goals. That is the uncompleted, the unfinished agenda of the Millennium Development Goals. So this one is an offshoot. You will remember that during the Millennium Development Goals, many countries did not meet up. My country did not meet up. And so the UNO came up in 2015 with the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. We are only concerned with the SDG 4 because of its emphasis on education, because it emphasizes that no one should be left out of education. This one goes beyond this by advocating for the commitment of everybody in order to ensure equal opportunity for assessing quality and leading quality opportunities in all levels of education and in lifelong learning perspective. So that is why we have taken this SDG as part of the discourse. We can provide education through formal and informal. When we talk about informal education or informal environment, we are talking about training for skills and training for skill acquisition. In all, quality is the key, whether it is formal, whether it is informal, whether you are talking about training, whether you are talking about skill acquisition, we are talking about quality. There must be quality. This is to ensure equal opportunity in access to more learning opportunities for both youth and adults throughout life. More learning opportunities for both youth and adults throughout life. So everybody must continue to learn throughout life. It means that SDG 4 is not only about formal education as a means of acquiring knowledge. It also includes training in the sense of gaining skills. This also means that while education looks at a holistic and a comprehensive approach for quality, access, rights, inclusiveness, long life learning, training is concerned with a certain activity which is mostly referred to as transfer of skills. So in education, you talk about all the rights, all the inclusiveness, all the lifelong learning. But then in training itself, you talk about transfer of skills, acquisition of skills. And so two of them combine in order to achieve this SDG 4, which has given which has 7 outcome targets and 3 means of implementation. Just this SDG 4 has 7 outcome targets and 3 means of implementation. We are not going into that because I am limited with migration. And so I just want to mention that. And so the key parameters include access, inclusion, equity, equality, quality, and lifelong learning. There is no way you can talk about SDG 4 without talking about lifelong learning. At this point, we note the link between education and migration. We also see how education drives and is the key for the management of migration. We said education drives migration. And I've already said that it is not in all cases where education drives migration. Our responsibility is to advocate for measures to develop inclusive, responsive, and resilient education or education systems to meet the needs of the migrants, and particularly those in crisis contexts, which includes internally displaced persons, that's the IDPs and the refugees. Of course, you know, in Nigeria, because of the crisis in the Northeast, banditry, and so on, there are so many people in the IDP camps. And so, again, because of the war in Russia and Ukraine, you have refugees all over the world. So our problem is how to manage them in order to give them quality education, inclusive education, and make it possible for them to have education and continue to have their education. We have to be able to equip them for sustainable future in order to prevent potential forced migration. This is what education can do, one of the things education can do. Now, let us look at some statistics. In the year 2000, it was noted that over 173 million people lived outside their countries of origin. 173 million people lived outside their countries of origin. In the year 2015, the figure increased to 250 million and moved to 258 million in 2017. The figure continues to increase. These are people living outside their countries. Imagine 258 million people. The population of Nigeria is about 200 million. We are not even sure of that because there is no actual, it's a projection. More than 200 million people. But look at the number that has left their countries to other countries, 258. And that is in 2017. By now, it must have increased. And with this Russia-Ukraine war, the number would have doubled. My focus is on educational migration from Nigeria. And so what does statistics say? In 2017, more than 84,735 Nigerian students were studying in different countries overseas, 84,735 Nigerian students. This figure dropped to 76,338 in 2018. You will ask me why it dropped instead of increasing. The drop can be attributed to the relationship between Naira and dollar. Because the Naira continues to slide, the affordability continues to be eroded. And so that is why we have this drop. And so I'm also sure that because of the Russia-Ukraine war, of course, so many students came back from Ukraine, from Russia. So this figure would have dropped again. I want to look at the studies conducted by Sussex University in 2022 in Nigeria, using 4,000 respondents. This year, they reported that 89.87% of young Nigerians prefer to study overseas. Prefer to study overseas. Overseas. Now, when you look at this, the statistics given, these are students who are studying overseas. You'll note that these days, Ghana, South Africa, Republic of Benin are destination points for Nigerian students these days. There are so many reasons why students migrate, why Nigerian students migrate for quality education. And so we want to look at those things. The figures given above is not comprehensive, as it reflects on those that registered and pursuing higher education. You will note that there are people, individuals who travel, who sponsor themselves and go to acquire education. Those people are not registered. You will also note that this figure does not include people studying outside the countries within Africa. If you get the number of students that are studying in South Africa, in Ghana, in Republic of Benin, and other African countries, you will marvel. And when you look at this figure and look at the amount they pay, the amounts that are being transported from Nigeria to outside, you will also marvel. For any individual to want to migrate to pursue his educational ambition outside the country must consider the 3 C's. These are cost. You have to consider the cost of the education, where you are going. What is the cost of the education from start to finish? If you want to go to any university in South Africa, you have to find the cost, the school fees, and other costs, and then add them together, put them together. You will consider whether you'll be able to meet the cost before you can attempt to migrate. You'll talk about the curriculum. You're going to consider the curriculum. The curriculum, how do you consider the curriculum? We know that in some universities are noted for some programs. Some universities are noted for their prowess in engineering, some in law, some in sciences, and others. And so when you consider what you want to achieve and the type of knowledge you want to get, you can also consider their curriculum in order to find out the area you want to go and the town or the country you want to migrate to in order to get exactly what you want. The other thing you have to consider is the country. You have to consider the country where you are going. This country, how is it? How safe is it? How buoyant is it? What are they going to offer you in terms of the knowledge you need, in terms of the socio-economic activity in that country? Is it peaceful? For instance, how many students, how many people from outside who want to come to Nigeria at this point? I remember when I was in the university, we had both lecturers from outside the country and students from outside the country. But these days, go around Nigerian institutions and see how many students are foreign students in Nigeria. That will tell you that you have to consider the country first. Because of the security situation in Nigeria now, because of the economic situation in Nigeria now, people do not prefer Nigeria these days, but Nigerians prefer to even go outside, even up to the Republic of Benin here, even to Ghana, and so on. So these are the 3 C's you have to consider: the cost, the curriculum, and the country itself. Nigerians prefer to pursue higher education outside the country, mostly because the educational system has deteriorated so much. Nobody needs to emphasize on this. Everybody is seeing the decay in education in this country. There are other reasons, and those reasons are not limited to this. Long-running strikes. You see what is happening? Nigerian university system is closed since February, and the government is not sensitive to that. So they are ruining the future of our youths, the future of our educational system. That is number 1, and that is mostly the key. 2, graduates are highly unemployable. What type of curriculum do we have now? A curriculum that we use to graduate learners. They come out and they roam about the street. That means that there is a disconnect with the curriculum and the realities of the society. And so we have to look at that. Our graduates are largely unemployable. Not that the labor market is not looking for, or that the labor market is saturated. No, it's because we produce graduates who cannot fit in. For instance, if there is a gathering and you throw a stone, the probability that that stone will land on the head of a Nigerian graduate that is not employed is up to 50%. That will show you that it is bad. 3, lack of investments in education. Who are investing in education? And if you look at the ranking of universities in the world, where is Nigerian universities in the ranking? Even in Africa, where are Nigerian universities? Is there any Nigerian university among the first 100 in Africa? No. This is because there is lack of investment in education. We don't want to invest in education. And because we don't want to invest in education, we have decays all over the educational institutions in the country. We have unqualified people superintending and making educational policies for those who are educated. You have politicians, you have who are not graduates making policies for professors in the universities. This is an aberration. For instance, look at the Minister of Education who is a journalist, superintending over an education ministry. And that is why you are having all these crises everywhere. I am sure that if we put round pegs in round holes, we will get results. And the next one is outdated curriculum with no relevance to the realities of the changing society. We have curricula all over, from primary to tertiary, and they do not have relevance to the realities on ground. You have a graduate who has passed through this curriculum, and then he comes out and cannot solve his problem, his immediate problem. How much more solving societal problem? How much more solving the problems in the country? He cannot even fit in. That is what we have. And then we have general lack of faith in the educational system. Of course, how can you have faith in a decades deteriorating educational system? The educational environment is not competitive at all. It's not competitive. Even if you take the private universities, what do? Let my people go. Everybody must go. I will go with my counterparts. Is that real education? Are you producing the quality graduates? That is too bad. And we have the last and not the least, large-scale corruption in education. I was listening to some discussions over the television and over the radio. They were talking, giving figures, trillions of naira spent over the years in the educational setup, in the educational system. The ones spent by even TED funds, the ones spent by other agencies. If you go around the country, can you say exactly that this money is spent exactly on education? No, because they are there on paper, but the money itself is into people's pockets. That is what we have in Nigeria. And that is why people like to move out from Nigeria to go to elsewhere in order to acquire quality education. Now, let me go to educational migration, bridging the achievement of SDG 4 as the focus. We say that educational migration is a global phenomenon with so much emphasis or impact or influence on economic, social, and cultural implications. That we have implications for the educational migration in the global phenomenon. Education drives migration flows, which is significantly affected by people's movement. And so when we say education drives migration, and it means that it drives people from moving from one point to the other. So as a bridge to improve the educational status of children, and the educational migration is also a bridge to achieve the SDG 4. When people migrate, and they migrate for educational purposes, there is the possibility that we are trying to achieve the SDG 4. And remember, the keynote in the SDG 4 is to make sure that no one is left behind in education. So the key role of the SDG 4 is formative and drawing countries' attention to those core issues which have been absent from 2015. You remember that this SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals in general, are fallouts of the Millennium Development Goal. because many countries did not meet up. So they are given another opportunity to meet up now. And that is why we have these SDGs. And that is why we have the SDG 4. It means that countries should have a triggered investment in national monitoring mechanisms for education. There must be a monitoring mechanism for education, or for those who are migrating, and for education in general, including educational migration, including equity, inclusion, and quality. We must continue to monitor what the people that are migrating, whether they are migrating for the purpose for which they claimed. In conclusion, I want to say that access to quality education is a fundamental influence to migration. It has influence to people's opportunities in life, their economic and civic involvement, and their degree of integration. Migration is a key element that impacts all the SDGs, including the SDG 4. Educational migration helps people develop knowledge, skills, and competencies, and contributes to social and economic development of their countries, of their societies, of the individuals themselves. Since SDG 4 is inspired by a humanistic vision of education and development based on human rights and dignity, social justice, inclusion, protection, cultural, linguistic, ethnic diversity, variation, shared responsibility, and accountability. And so for all this, we need to encourage reasonable educational migration. I said reasonable educational migration, not just any migration. Government should, as a matter of urgency, provide adequate and competitive educational environments and policies that can impact in continuous curricular reforms that will change with the society. We need curricular reforms that will change with the society. So as the society is changing, the curriculum also must continue to change in order to produce, in order to give people the opportunity to change with the society. Thank you so very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, sir, for this wonderful presentation. You can see that Professor Ubah Adamu was clapping for you. This is a wonderful exposition of knowledge. You have done so well, sir. We really appreciate it. I know it's now time for questions, and I will advise, sir, that you just note the questions down and comments so that you will respond at the end. So we won't be taking responses intermittently. We just take the first 5 people, then you give responses, then we cannot take more if there are. However, I think I just want to set the ball rolling. I really enjoyed every bit of this presentation. And I want to say, notably amongst this discourse, you said, education, you said that SDG 4, it engenders, migration engenders education. That is, it drives, it's driven by education drives migration. Basically, that's what I got from there. Education drives migration. Then I now want to ask, can we also say migration drives education? What's your take with that? Because I was just looking at it, vice versa. I said, well, if education drives migration, Then migration can also be seen to drive education, because when most people travel out too, they may see the need and the ease of being educated too, more than when they were in their own country. I just want you to make your comments on that. And secondly, and that was the very last bit you mentioned, you said we should encourage we should encourage reasonable educational migration. And I told myself, how do we qualify a reasonable educational migration? You may want to throw more light on that. Thank you, sir. Those are my 2 comments. So now I open the platform, and the first hand I saw up was that of Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu. And so he will take the first comment, followed by Professor Adamu Shehu Usman, and then followed by Professor Akim Akinwale, and followed by Dr. Emina William Uli. Let's take those 4. No, and the 5th one, I think I saw Professor Akim Tijani will be number 5, and number 6 will be Dr. Gabriel Joe. So let's go in that order. After those 6, then we pause to take responses. Then we can continue thereafter. Thank you so much, sir. So over to you, Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Usuji, for such stimulating talk. But it seems to me you are focusing more on migration, but without context. I studied in the UK. I did my master's and my PhD in the United Kingdom, but I never considered myself an immigrant. So we needed a context. A person who goes to another country to study and then return back home, is he still a migrant? Because it is very, very important to understand migration in its true context. I would have loved the data whereby people who go to other countries to study stay behind. Those are truly true migrants. You go there to study, and then after you finish studying, you don't want to come back to your home country, and you stay there and you contribute to the economy of that particular country. This is different from somebody who goes there, study, and then returns back. It's just there on an assignment. I don't think you can call him a migrant, but there are other experts on migration who will be able to tell us that. And by the way, the Minister of Education is not a journalist. Adamu Adamu is an accountant, a trained accountant. He just ventured into journalism and writes. So if your argument is that the person who should be a minister should be an educationist, we had educationists before as ministers, and us who still went on strike. So I don't think there's any relationship between the qualifications or the training of the minister and the ability to manage education effectively. Also, Sussex University is spelled wrongly. I studied in Sussex University, and it is not double C, but double S. Maybe that's just simply an error on your part. But my main focus is that you seem to be more of a critique of education rather than a relationship between education and migration, regardless of whether it is in SDG 4 or what it is not. The reason is because at the end of the day, you are giving out prescriptions about how to improve education in Nigeria in order probably to make people stay. But a lot of the things you say should be done have already been done. NUC, for instance, has revised the curriculum. NUC has also suggested that universities are responsible for 30% of innovation in their curriculum. That 70% will be NUC control, but then universities are now free to innovate as far as the technology and society are concerned, up to 30% of the content of their curriculum. So this gives universities an opportunity to come up with things that will make people stay back behind rather than going to other places to study. So you have a lot of critique of education, but really, no, I didn't see, I would have loved a clear plan of action on the relationship between education and migration. For instance, open and digital learning is an effective mechanism that will address this issue of education and migration. In Adamawa, National Open University of Nigeria had an IDP camp, and sometimes in about 2014 or 2015, an IDP woman who was a migrant because she was running away from, she was a refugee running away from war, got first class from Adamawa IDP camp. I would have loved to see cases of such in which people were displaced. They were forced to migrate. They were forced to leave their homes, and yet they were able to get highly educated. So it would be wonderful to see, first of all, how many people left Nigeria, which you have given us, and out of that number, how many returned back to continue. Those who returned back could not be lumped together as migrants at all. And secondly, those Almajiris, because basically what you are talking about is about Almajiri, really. Because Almajiri is a student who moves from one place to another. You yourself, you are Almajiri because you moved from your village to Calabar where you studied. So the act of moving from your village to Calabar is exactly what the Almajiri do. They move from their village to a school to study. So are they migrants? If they are do you consider yourself, Professor Osuji, as a migrant? Because you are no longer living in your village. You didn't study in your village. You are not working in your village. You went somewhere to study and you are somewhere working. So where do we draw the line of the conceptual definition of migration? How do we determine exactly what migration is so that we can address the flow of people? So you spend quite a lot of time criticizing Nigerian education system, which means people run away from it. Well, it's okay, no problem with that. What are the solutions? How do we attract people to Nigeria? But you're talking about ASUU and all that. And you people are lucky at now. You people don't even go on ASUU strike. And you have to thank me for that because I fought a battle in order to make sure that people don't join ASUU in National Open University. And I was castigated for that by people. Because if we had joined ASUU, we will not be having this particular conversation now. And you people will not be having salary because I have not been paid my salary since February 2022. But you people are enjoying your salary. But people were agitating that we must join ASUU because of earned allowances. Earned allowances that deals with the formula that deals with contact between staff and students, which we don't have. We don't have that particular contact. That classroom contact is not there, so we're not even qualified for it. So we fought, I fought, make sure that the university remains a stable system. And I was castigated for it by some of our colleagues. And now you are enjoying it. Look at it without 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, no salary at all. And we're surviving. Tell me how people in now will have survived. So the point is, we seem to be focusing attention on a critique of the university system in Nigeria, but not really giving out a clear plan on how to solve that problem. But that's not for you. You can't do that. Nobody can just say, this is how to solve Nigerian educational problem. But I would have loved to see the relationship between education and migration, a clear education and migration relationship, because all of us in this hall are migrants, if we are to follow that thing. And the question is, so what? We all moved from our villages to another place to study, and we didn't go back to our villages. We're not a professor in your village, or you're a professor in Abuja or wherever it is. Are you a migrant? So we have to address that question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that extensive comment, sir. Now, Professor Adamushe, your turn, sir.
Thank you so much, Director. Welcome. Nice to see Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu. Thank you, Osuji, for the paper. Actually, if you look at the context of migration, is movement from one particular location to the other. In some cases, as we have it in natural sciences, could be as a result of change, as a result of environmental condition, and then change also as a result of either availability of food or seeking for mate. So naturally, it is not a permanent issue. It's something that you go and you come back. So where people will go and seek education to come back, we can consider them as migrant for going to education. As Professor Abdullah Uba Adamu rightly said, the word al-majiri is from Arabic, meaning al-muhajirun, that is migrators. Initially, the cultural belief is that if you stay where you are, you will not learn. You have to leave your environment, go somewhere to learn something new. Even if there are teachers within your environment, it is considered as if the home environment will still be, your normal activities will be carrying your mind away and it will not allow you to read. So the old cultural tradition is to send people away for education. But the normal thing is after acquiring the education, they come back. So they are now considered as migrants for seeking education. But in a situation whereby now we live in a global world, where, as Professor Abdullah Oba Adamu rightly said, the distinction has to be made between those that go there and even stay without coming back. So, and once you go somewhere and stay, then that is not migration, because migration is expected that you are leaving your location to another location for an obvious reason, and that you are expected back no matter how long it takes, you still want to go back to your particular location. So this is my little contribution to it. And thank you all for, thank you, Professor Osuji.
Thank you so much for that beautiful contribution. I think the next person is Professor Akinwale. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So I thank Professor Osuji for his excellent presentation. I really enjoyed the presentation. It's quite clear and interesting. At the same time, it is entertaining. But I wish to make a number of suggestions in order to improve the quality of the paper. The first suggestion will be in the area of the statistics about Nigeria. If possible, I think Professor Osuji should include statistics from other countries. For instance, I know that Sri Lanka has a lot of students who migrate, and the population of Sri Lanka, for instance, is less than 22 million, but more students from Sri Lanka migrate out of Sri Lanka compared to the number of students that migrate out of Nigeria. So that may be considered. Then secondly, the issue of employability. I think Professor Osuji is using one brush to paint the picture of, because of the statement that Nigerian graduates are unemployable. That statement is quite heavy. I am a professor of employment relations and labor studies, and yes, I'm aware we have a high rate of unemployment, but it may not be appropriate, sir, to say that Nigerian graduates are unemployable. That's a kind of generalization, because we have cases of our brilliant students who are easily employed by, recruiters. So our first-class students, those who have second-class upper, and a number of our students with some creative potentials are able to get jobs. And another quick illustration of this fact is that some of these are students that are traveling for their postgraduate studies within 2 months. Because, for instance, those that went to the UK, they have a work-study visa. They are given opportunity to work for 20 hours in a week, and within 2 months, they get employed, even in the UK. And these are students that we think are unemployed in Nigeria. So I think we need to reconsider that statement. And the private university, the statement that let my people go. I work in a private university, not even one. I work at Covenant University. I work at Landmark University. So some of the students I taught then, I know Toby went to South Africa after graduating from Landmark. He has got his PhD now. He's doing well. He got scholarship. BC is in UK. He's on scholarship as well. We have, Confidence came back to Unilag for a postgraduate, and she did well and got a job with a company that is into entrepreneurship. So basically, really, yes, I understand the challenges in private university in terms of shortage of personnel. But what I'm advocating for really, sir, is that it's important to balance our arguments. In as much as a private university may have some deficiency, really, they still make an impact in some ways, and they are still maintaining standard. A good example is Covenant University. In fact, some employers of labor now, prefer graduates from Covenant University because they are focal. These graduates are able to, they have self-confidence and they have learned some values during the 4-year program, which even make them to even be better than some assess some, underline some students from public universities. So this research is quite interesting, sir. I must reiterate that again, because lifelong learning is an important construct. And I like the fact that you consider the relevance of informal education as part of the trajectory of learning, which can also contribute to quality education. So finally, sir, you made reference to statistics about 89.70% of Nigerians students who prefer to study abroad, and you did clarify that the population of the respondents were obtained from abroad, and you said at some point the number of students appear to be declining for some reasons. So another statistics that we had from the number of study visas issued from 2019 to 2022 shows clearly that in 2022, for instance, the study visa issued already to applicants from Nigeria has been about 63,000 compared to about 38,000 in 2019. So that's a kind of increase in the rate of students who are now going abroad to study. So I like to stop here, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof, for that wonderful contribution. I cannot see Dr. Uli's hand up again.
Thank you, Professor Osuji, for bringing us closer to another presentation that has to do with education. I have a concern here where in recent time, education has become the exclusive right of the rich, particularly in African society. Now, if this has become the trend in recent times, so how do we now equate this, when there is this dichotomy between the rich and the poor people's children, migrating overseas, acquiring this education? How do you classify this kind of arrangement within this context, sir? I think that's my major concern here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm sure Prof has noted that question. And so, Professor Tijani, please. Over to you, sir.
Good morning.
Professor Joe comes in after.
Good morning, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I want to commend the effort of Professor Suji for sharing knowledge with us. I want to, more importantly, concur with my former boss, Noga, and colleague, Professor Uba Adamu. He really said all that I wanted to say. Why? Because there's a lot to be filled, to contextualize by Professor Suji. I think the lens is kind of, in my opinion, rather journalistic than academic. But I won't say more than that, just to support Professor Adamu. But be that as it may, let me add this. Even if you are conversing for the review of the curriculum, I think, luckily you are a professor of education, dean of education, the last time I checked, but I believe the ball is in your court to be able to take this up and do a review within the context and regulation of NUC. They've given you the mantle, you take it and fly with it. That is one. Two, the issue of trying to compare and contrast the employability or the opportunities overseas, and whether or not we can get there. We have to be careful. I heard Professor Akinwale talking about some of the students going to UK. They even beyond UK, the regulation overseas is that as a foreign international students, okay, we have to separate them from the postdoc. You are entitled to 20 hours on-campus employment, on campus. A few of our people, they want to do something beyond what is legal, and they get themselves into trouble. But that does not mean that they are permanent residents. The employability thereafter does not also and should not be used as a yardstick to discuss their employability or their survival. I'll give a personal trajectory. When I tell people I never had a degree in the United States, they say, "Oh, wow, we thought you went to Harvard or what?" I said, "No, whatever. I went to one of the best. I started there, LASU. I'm a pioneer. Went to Unilag. Of course, the closest was as a Commonwealth scholar at the University of London, SOAS, and then to South Africa. But when you retool yourself, and that is the issue, the pedagogy of teaching those contents is what we are missing generally. And I can debate this with anybody. How you teach, how you apply that history of Tafawa Balewa to the reality of life, to leadership, to entrepreneurship, to governance, will make a lot of sense than just telling the story. And that is what we are missing. So, but again, we have to separate migration from education. We can't afford any journalistic issue of we're not being paid, the minister is this and that. Some people argue, oh, the current years, and I'm not saying this to advertise. Oh, he's not a professor, he's not that. It means you don't have a sense of history of the TED Fund, because there have been people without professorial rank or teaching rank that has headed that agency. So what is important is your ability to manage people, execute the policy, and engage in participatory leadership philosophy. But again, Professor Osuji has really opened up our space to continue to dialogue. We have to ensure that even our people that left, I won't say some stuff because right now, I don't want to discuss, another experience that I can share, but I can discuss that privately with people. The issue of migration and how people just want to manipulate without decency to the law, rules, and regulations. And even for someone like us, they say, oh, it's because the VCs, rectors, and what have you. You don't want to, but again, we commend Professor Osuji. It's not easy putting anything together and facing. I still pray for that wisdom and zeal to be able to present one of these days instead of roundtable and talk 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I thank you, Madam Director. And
thank you very much, sir, for that contribution. Very well appreciated. Last but not the least is Dr. Gabriel Job. Over to you, sir.
All right. Good afternoon, Ma. Thank Prof. Mamadine for a wonderful presentation. I want to especially thank our former VC. Is glad to see him once again. The submission of this work, the submission of this presentation is that we should encourage migration. My take is ICT has come to stay. There is e-learning. People can stay at a place and learn from any place in the world. It's a global world. So why do we encourage educational migration when we can use the information communication, the emerging information communication technologies to learn from anywhere in the world? That is my submission. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm sure that the presenter has heard us all and would want to start responding. Let us hear from you, sir, Professor Osuji.
Thank you so very much. I am very, very happy that people are responding. if I had finished and I didn't get any response, I would have cried and said, that means I've labored in vain. But thank God I have some responses, so I'm very, very happy. The first question here is, can migration drive education? You would have noticed that I said two of them, education and migration, work hand in hand. And I emphasize that education drives migration. Then, on the other hand, if you are migrating and you are migrating for education, it is the same thing. That means that the way education drives migration is also the way migration drives education. Because we are talking about educational migration, not just any other migration. And so the two of them work hand in hand in order to improve people's personality, their knowledge, skills, in order to be relevant to their society. And then you say, what is exactly reasonable educational migration? Now, I used and I emphasized that word reasonable. Reasonable in the sense that many people have their visas to go and study abroad. We have cases of people who have student visas to go and study abroad, especially in Malaysia. From my own side, I witness people who have visas to go and study abroad. And when they get there, especially the area, Malaysia and that axis, what did they do? They engage in different things and then different ways in order, they engage in different shortcuts in order to make money. That is not reasonable educational migration. We are talking of genuine people who travel in order to acquire education. That is what I mean by reasonable educational migration. Then I want to appreciate my former VC for making some contributions here. And then I also want to appreciate my brother Dean for giving that description, which is what in this context, that is exactly what it means. Educational migration, those who go out, acquire education and come back. And so within that period, when they are outside their comfort zone, outside their homes, outside their society, outside their country, they are educational migrants. And so we describe them as migrants for the purpose of education. And so that's in this context, I think my brother Dean of Faculty of Health gave the correct description for this context, and that is exactly what it is. Education as exclusive right of the rich.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
Hello?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. We understand all that. But you have not answered the question of so what? You are descriptive, but not prescriptive. You have described that somebody goes from one place to another to study, and that is educational migration. Fine, we understand that. We get that. The question is, so what? I mean, what do we do with that information? What is the implication of that?
Yes, sir. The implication is that we are describing it with the achievement of the SDG 4, the SDG 4, which says that nobody should be left behind. And so that's why we say encourage people to go and study so that nobody will lose the right for education. Yes,
I would love to go to Malaysia to study. Who will sponsor that? Who will pay for that? I mean, if it is a right that because of SDG goals that I should not be denied education, who will pay for that? I want to go to Australia to study. I want to go to Iceland to study. Who will pay for that? So the point is that so long as you're talking about educational migration, this is a process that has been going on for a very long time. That's what Professor Shehu meant by saying that Al-Majri in the north have been doing this for hundreds of years. Since about 15th century, people have been moving from one place to another. all of us, like I said here, are Al-Majri. But at the panel analysis, what we want to see is to what extent do we as Al-Majri or as professors impact on the communities that we migrated to, or impact on the communities that we are migrating back to. In other words, you, Professor Osuji, what your impact as a professor, as Al-Majri to Abuja? In what way have you developed the economy of Abuja as a migrant? Those are the empirical driven focus that I thought we'll be looking at. I'm sorry to interrupt your director. I'm sorry, but I thought these things are interactive, you know?
Well, it's okay. I'm sure the presenter is enjoying every bit of it.
Yes, I am really enjoying it. Then I was talking about education as exclusive right of the rich. It is not meant to be so. It is because of the economic situation in the country that we think education is exclusive right of the rich. If education is made affordable, and that is what, I think that is what ASU and others are fighting for. If the country is very rich, and so if we can harness what we have in this country, it can, if it goes round, nobody will say that education is the exclusive right of the rich. I think education is meant for everybody. And because it is meant for everybody, that is why it is entrenched in this SDG 4, that nobody should be left behind of education, whether rich or poor, whether in rural area or in urban area. The most important thing is that everybody is learning. Everybody is acquiring knowledge through education and training. That is the most important thing. Do not forget that even if we have a quality education at the public level, in the public schools, everybody who intends to be educated will get education. And so it will no longer be the exclusive right of the rich. The next one is about curriculum reform. And I want to say that in terms of curriculum reform, we know that NUC has taken the center stage to reform the curriculum. But then we have some 30% to do to make an impact. And I'm sure as the Dean of Faculty of Education, we have started by, I'm sure you have heard about the Change Maker course, which we are introducing, which we are doing now. We are introducing that so that it will be a part of the curriculum review within this 30%. We are introducing the Change Maker course. And this Change Maker is, the objective is to make sure that we go to the basics, that we produce graduates who regard change, that we produce graduates who will solve their own problem within their society, who will fit into the society, who will fit into the labor market. That's why we are introducing those courses that are related to change. So it's our own side of the reformation of curriculum. Then the question about ICT and migration. And then why not, if we have ICT and people can study anywhere and anytime, why do they migrate? Well, for education, migration is continuous. Even if you are studying in the comfort of your home, some of the times you have to migrate, you have to move in order to acquire more knowledge, in order to enrich your knowledge. Even if you have acquired the knowledge, you have to enrich it. And so once you are educated, there is the tendency for you to move. And in order to move, you will move to make sure that you acquire more education, more knowledge. And that is why, whether we are using ICT or not, educational migration will continue. Educational movement will also continue. I think I've answered all the questions. I don't know. The others are comments, which I cherish so much. Thank you so very much, my director.
Thank you very much, sir, for this wonderful presentation and responses to all the questions asked. I think I am trying to look out. I cannot see any hand up. I don't know. Is there any other person who wants to say something? Okay, I can see here our DVC Technology Innovation and Research is on this platform. Hello, Ma, you are welcome. I don't know if you have anything to tell us concerning today's topic. Professor Monioluwa Olaniyi, you're welcome, Ma. Well, and I know there are many, I must say that today is reasonably well attended. We had up to 40 people on this platform. And I can see the Dean of Health Sciences, the hand is up again, I'm sure. I cited it. Okay, I thought I saw his hand up. Professor Adamusheu, yes, his hand is up. Please, can you say something, sir?
Thank you so much. Just to appreciate the presenter and all of us. And as I pointed out earlier, the main thing that we should take care of are relocation and migration. Because migration, as it is going somewhere, changing your location over a given distance with the intention of coming back. But relocation is when you totally think of, okay, leaving, going somewhere to stay there permanently without thinking of coming back. So even in educational context, those two should be taken care of. Like all of us now have relocated to Abuja. We have not migrated. We have partially relocated. So it's not an issue of migration like it is in natural sciences where animals move over a period of time with a given distance.
Thank you so much, sir, for that contribution. I absolutely agree that we have relocated and we have not migrated. And however, like has been rightly defined here today, there's permanent migration and there is temporary migration. So, and that's another school of thought. So you can have it temporarily, you can have it permanently. And of course, like you have rightly said, we can have migration, we can have relocation. And so whichever way we look at it, there are different schools of thought about the terminology migration. So thank you so much for that beautiful contribution, sir. The Dean, Faculty of Health Sciences. I'm blessed today. I have two people here that are my deans, Dean of Education and Dean of Health. I'm the only one who has that status in now to have two deans at a time. And I'm really shocked about that. You are both great people. Thank you so much. And if there are no other comments or questions, then we want to have a final say, a final summary from our presenter. I was thinking that the DVC was going to say something to us, but maybe she doesn't want to speak today. But I recognize her presence on this platform.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Director. Just to say something.
Okay, thank you so much.
I just greeted everyone, just to say something.
Okay, thank you so much. You are most welcome, Ma. Thank you. The presenter, Professor Osuji, sir, we want to hear one last word from you as an education expert.
Thank you so very much. Yes, my last word is that education is regarded as power for poverty eradication, as power to have peace and development. And so when people move in order to acquire education, they move from one point to the other, from one society to the other, from one country to the other in order to get education. We are saying that we should encourage that because of the SDG 4, that nobody should be left out of education. And we are also saying when people migrate, they should not leave their right of education behind. Because when you acquire more knowledge, more skills, and competencies, you'll be of good quality to the society, to yourself and to the society. You have the value to impact on the society from where you have acquired the knowledge and from where you are going with the knowledge. And so that is what we need in Nigeria, especially at this point in time when the country is at its lower ebb of morale. And so we need to encourage reasonable educational migration in order to get more people involved in societal development and the development of the country at large. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for those words of admonition. Thank you so much, very much appreciated. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your sharing your knowledge with us. And we must say, we are thankful to everyone who has contributed to this discourse this afternoon. For your time, for your words of wisdom and knowledge, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And at this junction, if there is no more concern, there are no more concerns, no more questions.
There's
we
one.
want to call it a day.
If you have the time, there's one.
Pardon?
There's one. If you have
okay. Let's quickly take
and then we can
quickly take it, sir.
Yeah, we can continue the debate. What do you mean by encouraging educational migration? Are you trying to encourage brain drain? You want to encourage folks coming without legal papers and they're saying, I'm not going back after signing bonds? What exactly are you trying to encourage, Professor? I think we have to be very, very careful in advocating something that we cannot sustain, that is not in the benefit of any nation. We can say, well, there are opportunities and it is not an avenue to block anyone from such opportunity. But in any case, I just want to contextualize if Professor Osuji can tell us, what exactly do you mean by encouraging educational migration? Are you saying now train people with PhD, send them on postdoc, and they should stay over?
He's talking about Almajiri. He's saying everybody should be Almajiri now.
Everybody should be Almajiri.
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is when people, now let me use this. We have noted that the current capacities of the universities in Nigeria cannot take the whole people, the whole youth and young people who are aspiring to have a quality education. And so when you take JAMB and you cannot get JAMB and you cannot get admission, and then you have opportunity to go elsewhere to get admission and to get quality education, I said we should not we have to encourage such people to go. So long as when they go, they acquire the knowledge and skills and then come back to help in the development, to help in change in the country. That's what I'm saying. And so I'm not saying that we should allow them to go there and then stay. But if you cannot get admission to have quality education in Nigeria, we should encourage such people to wherever they can get quality education to go there and get it.
Thank you very much for clearing that. Let me also say something for all the parents in the house. Let me say something. We mix it when we think, even the JAMB, whatever, you take it and then I'll give a short narrative and you can check him out. And I think Akinwale can validate. Saheed Adenito is a full professor of history, currently with Florida International University. Saheed Adenito did not step into Lagos until 2002 or 3, when he got his full scholarship from Ibadan to UT Austin. He does not know anybody. It is high time we tell our kids, our children, do the SAT, equivalent of JAMB, marks it. You don't have to beg anybody. You know, Saheed Adenito had a full right to do master's, PhD, and there are so many Saheed Adenito. All you need to do is to utilize such opportunities. You go to the education section of US Embassy or go to British Council, encourage your kids. You can get a full ride. you can get a full ride. I never know of anyone when I enter LASU, even older than some of my classmates. I wanted to read law. The best they could have done was to, kick me out of reading law because it was meant for the sons and children of the rich. And I read what God, divinely. So we must do extra mile. The cell phone that you give them, the smartphone, let them utilize it for greater things, for better things. They can do it. They can do it. This idea of prebendalism and unnecessary glorification of one or two people, God will use somebody to really pave way for you. And when he does, also be careful. So I think because we can do a roundtable. And like I said, we having a workshop, so I have to at least close my mouth now before this eagle that one of the eagles is here already.
Okay, thank you so much. I think all comments are well noted. And if we would wish to continue, I'm going to add Professor Osuji right away to our platform, so that our WhatsApp platform, so that we can continue from that platform. You must agree with me, we've really had a good time. It's just about 12 minutes before 2, and we've been here on the dot of 12 p.m. today. So almost 2 hours. And I think we've really had a splendid day. So on that note, I want to thank you all once again and call it a day. Thank you very much for all your contributions. Thank you, our presenter. You are blessed. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Madam Director, for carrying on the light. Thank you, Professor Adamo, for giving us this opportunity. And then finally, Professor Osuji, for at least yielding after several years pressure.